Hello. I hope you can hear me. I'm waiting for the presentation to load. Mhm. Okay. Thank you for the invitation. I am here to share the views of the board members of the Latin American Association for Language Testing and Assessment on the principles of good practice and their potential to be used in the Latin American context. My name is Salomé Villa, and I am the current president. Um, we see potential for this document to be a reference for good practices in Latin America, and not only for test developers and users, but also for other language assessment practitioners as well, who relate to language assessment in their daily work. Our comments and suggestions come from this perspective and from outside the European community. In this brief talk, I will refer to what we value from the document, the space for improvement that we see, and our suggestions. We think that the strengths of these documents are, first of all, that it is well structured and complete. It is a useful resource to guide testing practice for those involved in the field. It provides the history of ALTE, which is very helpful to understand its value and the purpose. It also provides information on the expansion of ALTE to individual members. Another strength we see is the author setting the scene on ethical considerations by including ILTA and ALTE codes of ethics. We also value ALTE's involvement in the language assessment for migration and integration for the perspective of ethics and standards. Another two strengths of the document are that it is strongly suggests or encourages data collection and research by ALTA member organizations, and that it also makes reference to different stakeholder groups. All in all, we think that the principles are useful in the Latin American context for informing policymakers, informing international exam users, and even for instruction at Latin American universities, so students can have a wider picture of the complexity of language testing. One difficulty that we see for our particular context is the fact that the principles are mapped to the CFR. This might mean that they do not adhere to several Latin American contexts, such as Brazil, that does not use the CFR for the national curriculum. It also means that leaves aside other languages, like indigenous ones, which are important in Latin America. For the space for improvement, first, the document, it is stated in the document that the principles are accessible, as Nick said, to a wide audience with varying degrees of professional expertise. The document does provide theoretical background so stakeholders who are not familiar with language testing principles can understand them. However, we feel that the wording and the technical language may be too complex or difficult to follow for other stakeholder groups different from language testers, such as policymakers, for example. Um, the document also presents an interesting discussion on impact and washback. Here, however, the document states that data should be collected on the kinds of resources and materials that are used to prepare candidates for the tests. We do understand that washback can be seen in test preparation materials. However, we think that this section could be misinterpreted as implying that course materials can prepare someone to pass a proficiency test, which runs against the concept of proficiency. So we advise revision principles. This is a very interesting and complete section. With the exception of validity, we believe that clearer recommendations are necessary, as included in the section on the other sections, the one for reliability, practicality, and impact, especially because validity is a difficult concept to grasp. Moving on. So we acknowledge that this document aims to inform the ALTE membership and the testing companies and to promote good practices among them. We are also aware of ALTE's recent expansion to individuals and beyond the European context. So based on that desire of expansion, we have the following suggestions. Page 14 makes reference to the ALTE LAMI booklet mentioned by Waldek, language tests for access, integration, and citizenship, an outline for policymakers. This is a very interesting document of great value and could be used to inform policymakers outside Europe as well. Even when testing and migration are not current issues in Latin America for language testing, they could become so in short term as globalization and economic mobility are increasing in countries such as Chile and Brazil, or were before the pandemic. However, the document is only available in English, Finnish, and Italian, and it would be beneficial as well to offer translations to Spanish and Portuguese, both being the most spoken languages in Latin America and also members of ALTE. In Latin America, language test development, unfortunately, is rarely local. International exams are still the ones that are mostly used throughout our region. In that regard, we do see the value of the principles of informing policymakers and exam users. However, the core of our language assessment practices in our region is the classroom, and we see potential to extending this document or complementing it to reach the language teaching profession. The document states that the principles have been designed to be accessible to wide audiences. However, the pitch that does not seem very practical and realistic for regular classroom teachers. We see a gap in relation to classroom assessment as it mainly deals with standardized testing, and we consider this to a certain extent excluding. Therefore, expanding or complementing the principles with a focus on classroom-based assessment could be beneficial for fulfilling the principles' purpose of developing language assessment literacy declared there. We see the importance and value of this effort, and we believe the document has the potential to help develop LAAL, provided it reaches other stakeholder groups that go beyond the language testing organizations, such as classroom teachers. Thank you very much.